A teenage girl vanished into a cold, snowy night after a mysterious accident, leaving behind an empty car and an unsent message. 13 years later, her red jacket was found snagged on a treetop, a final cry for help from the depths of the dark forest. Each unearthed clue pointed to a shadowy figure with scarred hands and horrific secrets hidden beneath layers of ash. This wasn't just a disappearance, it was a warning that sometimes evil lives close by, right in the heart of peaceful America. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated with the latest stories. Just before dawn on March 12, 2003, the remote town of Cedar Hill, Colorado, still wrapped in the silence of its icy forests, was shaken by a phone call that rattled the local police department. A truck driver reported spotting a silver Honda sedan crashed into a guardrail on a desolate mountain road about 6 miles from the town center. What struck him as odd was the open car door, the engine off, but still warm, the hazard lights flickering faintly in the fog, and no one in or around the vehicle. When police arrived just 20 minutes later, they confirmed the car was registered to the Whitlow family, its owner, a 17-year-old girl named Samantha Whitlow, a senior at Cedar Hill High School. Hours earlier, Samantha was last seen at her best friend's birthday party in Springfield Valley. According to friends, she left alone around 1 a.m., saying she was tired and wanted to head home early to prepare for school the next day. But she never made it home. When police searched the car, they found Samantha's phone under the passenger seat, its screen cracked but not powered off or out of battery. On the screen was an unsent message, "I'm on my way home, Mom." There was no blood, no signs of a struggle, no luggage, no jacket. Unusual given the temperature was -4 degrees Celsius. Even stranger, there were no footprints around the scene, except the tire tracks of the Honda itself. A search operation was quickly mobilized. Police, K-9 units, thermal imaging helicopters, and local volunteers scoured the snowy forest, following every possible lead. They traced the slope from the main road into the woods, searching cliffs, ravines, and even a nearby frozen lake. But after 3 relentless days, there was no sign of Samantha. She had vanished into the cold air, leaving no scrap of clothing or sound behind. Her family was devastated. Martha, her mother, a retired nurse once known for her kindness, became withdrawn and frantic. She insisted her daughter didn't run away. "She would never make me worry like this." "Never," she said in her first local TV interview, her eyes red and voice trembling. Gene, Samantha's father, a former Iraq War veteran, was quieter but held his wife's hand tightly throughout the interview. In the days that followed, Samantha's room became a sacred space, untouched. On her desk, an open notebook held a half-written note. "Tomorrow is the math test, but I'm ready." This was a girl with plans, a clear future. She wasn't the type to vanish into a snowy night without her jacket, leaving her phone behind, without a word to anyone. The search team's map of the area was marked with red circles for searched zones and question marks for treacherous, inaccessible spots. As days passed, hope faded. After a week, the official search was paused due to weather conditions. But for Samantha's family, the nightmare was just beginning. On the 10th day after her disappearance, an anonymous note arrived at the police station. A worn, photocopied sheet with typed, scrawled words. The girl saw something she shouldn't have. Stop digging. No one knew where it came from. No fingerprints. No postmark. The note was never shared with the media, but it shattered Martha's belief that this was an accident. Samantha's disappearance shifted from missing to suspected abduction. Yet there were no suspects, no arrests, no confessions, an unsolved case, a snowy night, and a teenage girl gone forever. Until 13 years later, when a hiker stumbled upon a torn red jacket caught in a pine tree miles away, and everything began to change. In the days following Samantha's disappearance, the Whitlow family's home on the outskirts of Cedar Hill was suffused with a thick, chilling silence. Sunlight, streaming through the kitchen window, couldn't dispel the emptiness Martha carried with every step. Each morning, she woke staring at the ceiling, hoping for a miracle that it was all a nightmare, and soon Samantha would shuffle into the kitchen, hair messy, grumbling for toast as usual. But it never happened. Her husband, Gene, barely spoke since the police called that night. He spent his days cleaning guns, organizing the shed, and poring over topographic maps, like a soldier preparing for a mission. "I scoured Iraqi deserts for the faintest sign of life. My daughter? I'll do more." he said, in a low, resolute voice when a visiting friend urged him to rest. The police, meanwhile, began to pull back. They said they'd searched every feasible area, that there was no evidence of an abduction. They left open all possibilities, including that Samantha ran away. This infuriated Martha. She wouldn't run, she declared, like a vow. She's not that kind of person. She hated lies, hated people who shirked responsibility. She once scolded her best friend for skipping class to hang out. Why would she just disappear? Meanwhile, Samantha's friends began sharing details they'd initially withheld, thinking them unimportant. Chloe, her closest friend, revealed that Samantha had seemed unsettled lately. She'd texted late at night, saying, "Someone's watching me, and every time I turn the corner by our house, I see a brown truck parked there, no lights, no driver." Chloe thought it was a joke, or the result of sleepless study nights. Now, she wasn't so sure. Another friend, Patrick, a science classmate, said Samantha had asked him if the school's cameras recorded at night, and if unofficial footage could be obtained. He thought she suspected someone was stealing from her locker. Now, he felt a chill. She might have known something. At an emergency parent-student meeting after the disappearance, the principal quietly mentioned academic pressure Samantha might have faced. Martha stood up mid-meeting, her eyes blazing. "Pressure? My daughter earned a full scholarship to state. She knew what she wanted since she was 13. And above all, she believed in truth. If she felt unsafe, she'd tell me." The room fell silent. No one could deny Samantha was different. Principled, mature, calm beyond her years. She volunteered to help elementary students, wrote anti-bullying articles for the school paper, and once called out a teacher in front of everyone for unfairly punishing a friend. She wasn't a runaway. A week later, Jean found something odd. While sorting through old mail in the garage, where Samantha kept her personal diaries, he discovered a black notebook wedged behind a bookshelf, nearly lost in a wall crevice. Inside were rushed, unclear notes. March 3rd, man with red baseball cap, still standing across from school. March 6th, brown truck, blurry license plate, same as before, parked near Mrs. McCarty's at 10 p.m. March 8th, knocking at 2 a.m., but nothing when I looked. Martha's heart nearly stopped as she read. Her daughter had been trying to say something. She'd left clues, whispers in writing. And then, in a carefully folded page, a single line in red ink. "If something happens, don't trust anyone." When Martha gave the notebook to the police, they were pensive but unsurprised, as if prepared to find nothing more. The investigation faded into obscurity. Each year, on March 12th, Martha hung her daughter's photo on the porch. Alone. Flyers yellowed, white ribbons faded in the mountain wind. Each year, she wrote to the local paper, begging for someone to come forward, even with the smallest clue. "I don't need justice," she once wrote. "I just need to know where my daughter went, and why." No one answered. No one knew. Until 13 years later, when a strange breeze lifted a red jacket into an old pine tree, and the past shuddered awake. Snow fell heavier on the 4th day after Samantha vanished, thick flakes blanketing Cedar Hill, as if to bury the town in white silence. For its residents, early March blizzards were familiar, but this snow felt oppressive, helpless, as if hiding a secret, as if those flakes were erasing the traces of a girl who once existed. The search, led by Clearfield County Police and local rescue teams, pressed on despite the weather. They brought heat sensors, dogs trained to track living scents, and helicopter reconnaissance. The mountain road where Samantha was last seen was combed inch by inch, every crevice, every bush meticulously noted on handheld maps. But the result was nothing. No footprints, no personal items, no unusual scents. A rescuer, Daniel Gomez, told a local reporter he'd never seen such a clean disappearance. "We've searched for people lost in snowy forests. Even those missing for 3 days leave skid marks, fabric, something. But this girl? She evaporated. It's not logical." Authorities didn't just search on land. They scoured Little Pine Lake, a mile from the scene, in case Samantha wandered and fell through the ice. Divers drilled through 20-centimeter thick ice, plunging into the murky depths, but found only algae and cold mud. As conventional methods failed, people turned to the unexplainable. Some older townsfolk whispered that the mountain range where Samantha vanished was called Death's Hollow in the 19th century, a site of mysterious disappearances during the gold rush. They spoke of sealed caves, unmapped passages. "Maybe she got lost, fell into some hidden pit," said Elbert, a 70-year Cedar Hill resident, through cigarette smoke. Or, maybe someone lives in those woods. The idea spread through the coffee shop, gas station, barber shop, like a dark mist seeping into minds. Someone was out there, someone who knew every gust of wind, every forest path, clever enough to leave no trace. At the makeshift command post by the forest, Martha sat silently beside cold coffee. In her hand was Samantha's photo, curly brown hair, amber eyes, a smile slightly crooked to the left. She no longer cried. Her pain had surpassed tears. She watched searchers return from the woods, mud caked to their knees, faces purple from cold, hands empty. Gene, despite warnings about his high blood pressure, marked coordinates on a topographic map daily. "This area," he said, pointing to a northern forest with steep cliffs. "No one's checked. I'll climb. I scaled firewalls in Fallujah. I know ropes." But police stopped him. The area was too dangerous, unstable, only accessible by air. He slammed the table. "I don't need a chopper. I need my daughter back." On the 9th day, a volunteer, Dale Henson, reported finding a small fabric scrap caught on a branch near a western cliff. Forensics rushed to analyze it. The red wool matched the jacket Samantha wore the night of the crash, but the scrap, palm-sized and partially rotted, held no blood, no clear DNA. It proved nothing but reignited hope. The media buzzed again, and locals flooded the woods with cameras, phones, and self-proclaimed psychics or ghost hunters. A medium named Serena from Utah arrived, claiming, "The girl's spirit is still here, calling for help." Martha didn't believe her, but that night, she dreamed of Samantha standing in snowy woods, eyes teary, reaching out, before dissolving into mist. She woke, heart pounding. She knew her daughter was still out there. Though police began dismantling the main search post by the second week's end, Martha stayed, joined by a few loyal friends. In a handwritten letter to the state police, she ended in all caps, "My daughter didn't vanish on her own. Someone took her from me." On the 12th day, police downgraded the case from urgent search to open monitoring. The snow search ended. But for Martha, the snow never stopped falling. And deep in that cold forest, a 17-year-old girl was still waiting to be found, or for a truth to be revealed. 6 months after Samantha's disappearance, summer arrived in Cedar Hill, but the heat couldn't thaw the chill gripping those left behind. Life seemed to move on. Residents resumed routines. School reopened. The gas station went back to 24-hour service. But for Martha, time was frozen in that snowy night. She still cleaned Samantha's room each morning, straightening the bed as if her daughter had just left, dusting textbooks, sometimes placing a glass of water on the desk like before. Gene stopped saying Samantha's name, but spent hours studying geological maps, mountain trails, and online forums about missing persons. Once a rational man, his logic had turned to obsession. He believed Samantha was taken, not by a random stranger, but by someone calculated, prepared, and more familiar with the area than any local. One day, while sifting through Samantha's old files in the basement, he found a moss-green folder containing papers no one had seen. Not a diary, but short, black ink notes, undated. Main and Riverdale corner, brown truck, lights off, engine running. 2 a.m. footsteps outside, no one there. Someone was in my room, books moved. Mom doesn't believe me. No one does. The notes were brief, not speculative, just raw facts, as if reminding herself not to forget. The final line, in slanted print, seemed crossed out then rewritten. "If I can't come back, at least let someone know what I saw." Martha read the words, feeling icy mountain winds pierce her chest. Samantha had sensed something, had been watching someone, had been scared enough to document every move around her. But why? Who was she afraid of? What had she seen that no one else did? In a rare moment, Martha met Chloe, Samantha's best friend, now in college in Denver, but willing to talk. The meeting took place at a small suburban cafe, and from the first moment, Martha knew Chloe was holding something back. The girl's eyes kept darting away, her fingers lightly tapping the teacup, her voice wavering between low and halting. "I'm sorry for not saying anything sooner," Chloe began. "But that night, Sam and I had a fight." Martha stayed silent. "About a man. A guy." Chloe hesitated. "Not a boyfriend, not someone from school. An older man, maybe 30, or older. Sam said he kept showing up near the school, sitting in his car, watching the students. She told me not to tell anyone, but she started following him." "Who was he?" Martha nearly shouted. "I don't know." Chloe shook her head, her face pale. "Sam just called him the silent man," she said. "He never speaks, but he's always watching. He knows where I live. At the time, Chloe thought Sam was imagining things. But after she vanished, Chloe dared to believe those words weren't delusions. Martha took this to the police, but it led nowhere. The information wasn't enough to reopen the investigation. No one recalled seeing such a man. No license plate, no clear description. He was like a shadow in the small town, always there, but never truly seen. In October that year, a family moving out of a house at the end of Daisy Road, 2.3 miles from the crash site, found a hidden compartment behind a plywood panel in their shed's built-in cabinet. Inside was nothing but an old Polaroid photo. The image was blurry, overexposed, but clearly taken from the woods, facing a small wooden cabin with a slanted roof and no back windows. A figure stood under the eaves, wearing a baseball cap, holding something like a cloth bag or backpack. When police showed the photo to Gene, he immediately pointed out the shoulder bag's logo, a Cedar Hill High design, given only to seniors. The photo had no timestamp, but the film type was discontinued after 2004. That cabin, that figure, and that bag. It was as if they hinted at a memory the town had forgotten, or chosen to forget. But the strangest part was the scrawled blue ink on the back. Don't come closer. He hears everything. In the small town's veil of silence, behind walls no one touched, something was hiding. Something that knew how to vanish, how to stay silent. And Samantha might have known more than anyone. But knowing too much, sometimes that's an unforgivable sin. The atmosphere in Cedar Hill began to crack in tiny fractures, like old paint peeling off a house after too long a winter. No one said it aloud, but everyone started looking at each other with wary eyes. Samantha Whitlow's name slowly sank into the shadows of collective memory. But for her family and a few friends, it was only the surface of a raging undercurrent below. Martha no longer just held memories of her daughter in her heart. She began tracing clues in her own way, logging every name of anyone who crossed Samantha's path in the months before she vanished. Every call, every text, every offhand comment she'd mentioned. She arranged it all on a large board in the living room, pinning photos, maps, names, and red arrows, crisscrossing like an amateur detective. At the center of the board, one name stood out, Tyler Eames, Samantha's ex-boyfriend. Tyler had been a popular football player at Cedar Hill High. Handsome, confident, sometimes rudely so. He and Samantha broke up 3 weeks before she disappeared. When questioned by police, Tyler insisted they remained friends, despite arguing over petty things. But when Martha demanded to see Samantha's phone again, she found a series of deleted texts that Chloe, who'd glimpsed them, called vaguely threatening. Chloe recalled one line, "You think you can play this game to the end without anyone knowing?" But when confronted, Tyler shook his head. "He never sent anything like that. Maybe someone else did, someone using my phone or faking it." The police lacked evidence, and Tyler had a confirmed alibi at a friend's house during the crash. But Martha never forgot how Tyler's eyes avoided hers whenever Samantha's name came up. Not guilt, but something wasn't right. Then a new detail emerged, small but staggering, an orange fabric bracelet with the school team's logo, found in the woods by a boy camping with his father that summer. The bracelet was torn, faded, but hand-stitched initials on the back, S. Coors, were unmistakably Samantha's. The problem? It was found nearly 4 miles south of the crash site, in the opposite direction of the initial search. How did it get there? Was Samantha led away, or did she flee? As Martha grappled with painful theories, Chloe faced a different fear, an invisible pressure. She began finding notes slipped into her college dorm locker. "Don't dig up the past. It's not your business. Anyone can disappear." She didn't dare tell the police. But after the third night, when an anonymous text arrived, just a photo of Samantha's old high school room, Chloe began to believe someone was watching her. She called Martha in tears at midnight. "Someone doesn't want us to keep talking." That call opened a new path. Martha turned her focus to a group she'd previously dismissed, the wealthy kids, offspring of the town's powerful families, the Reeds, the Collingsworths, and especially the Beaumonts. Their daughter, Madison Beaumont, had a subtle rivalry with Samantha, both vying for the school's sole prestigious scholarship. They were outwardly friends, but rumors said Madison had threatened Samantha after an interview. When Martha confronted Madison, now a law student at a top university, the girl gave a faint smile. "If you think I had anything to do with Samantha, you're wasting your time. She was too perfect, too saintly, but also too naive." It wasn't a confession, but it wasn't a denial either. The words lingered in Martha's mind like a hint that Samantha might have seen, heard, or known something the town's influential wanted buried. And if that was true, her disappearance wasn't an accident or random. It was the consequence of a power game where trust was exploited and truth was silenced. In Cedar Hill, where everyone thought they knew their neighbors, secrets flowed like underground streams beneath the snow, and Samantha may have stepped into their deepest point. 13 years passed since the snowy night Samantha vanished on that mountain road in Cedar Hill. The town changed over time. The small cafe where Martha once worked extra shifts became a laundromat. The high school's old football field was repaved with new turf, and empty lots sprouted modern, sterile houses devoid of the past's breath. But in the old house at the end of Hawthorne Road, where Samantha's chosen white lace curtain still hung, time stood still. Martha lived alone after Gene died of heart failure in 2012. He never stopped searching, never stopped hoping. When he passed, his wallet held Samantha's photo, its back inscribed with faded red ink, "I'll find my way back." Since his death, Martha quietly carried on, living with pain, writing annual letters to the local paper on March 12th, clinging to faint hope that someone would read, remember, or speak. The letters were printed like a ritual, then faded into silence. Until one early winter day in 2016, everything changed. A Colorado State Ranger team was surveying the forest for damage after a major November blizzard. While clearing fallen trees, one ranger, Kyle Whitaker, noticed something odd in an old pine near a cliff in Harlow Forest. A torn red jacket, caught in branches nearly 20 feet up, was caked with ice and sap. They thought it was hiker trash, but when they cleaned off the snow at the station, they saw an inner lining with 3 embroidered letters. S.W., hand-stitched, unmistakably Samantha Whitlow's. The news spread like wildfire. Police were notified, the area around the find was sealed, and a forensics and tracking team was dispatched. The jacket was sent for analysis, and the results were undeniable. Dried blood on the sleeve matched Samantha's DNA, but a strand of light blonde hair on the collar wasn't hers, someone else's hair. The discovery shook Cedar Hill and reopened the case at the state level. Detective Leland Ortiz, a new investigator from Denver assigned to read the entire case file in 2 days. "I've never seen a disappearance where every lead vanishes like smoke until the forest itself gives back a piece," he said at his first press conference. When Ortiz knocked on Martha's door, she was ready in the living room, a cold teacup before her. A stack of 2003 case files nearby. "I knew he'd come back someday," she said softly, like a breeze. "I just didn't expect to wait 13 years. Ortiz detailed the jacket's discovery, asking about its style, stitching, personal details, all matched. Inside a pocket was something that made him catch his breath, a small folded note, edges rotted, but the writing still clear. "He has the key. Don't trust the door." The note not only confirmed Samantha's presence after the crash, but raised a chilling question: had she been held somewhere for an unknown time? And who was he? Why did he have a key? And most crucially, how long did Samantha survive that night? Martha, after years of holding herself together, seemed to crumble. "I used to pray she died that night. I know that sounds cruel," she whispered. "But the thought of her being held somewhere, alone, scared, for years, I can't bear it." The jacket sparked a new, large-scale search. The team scoured the area around the tree where it was found. They discovered a nearly invisible trail leading to a sunken patch of ground over 300 meters away. There, the soil was oddly compacted, as if someone had dug and refilled it. After hours of excavation, they found a rotted wooden frame, remnants of a house foundation. Land records showed a small cabin built there in 1984, owned by a man named Raymond Moss, destroyed in an unexplained 2005 fire. Police had never linked it to Samantha's case, as it wasn't on the search route. But now, things were different. And Raymond Moss, a name absent from any prior case records, became the only bright spot in a murky picture. Who was Raymond Moss? Why did his house burn 2 years after Samantha's disappearance? And most importantly, who hung that jacket in the tree, to be found, or to taunt? Questions piled up. But for Martha, one thing was certain: her little girl, who wrote diary entries in the night, trembling under the snow, had left a message. She'd survived that night. She'd hoped to be found. And now, finally, she was speaking. Raymond Moss's old wooden cabin once stood quietly in Harlow Forest, nearly 5 miles from the main road, hidden by pine groves and rugged limestone terrain few ventured into. On modern satellite maps, it was a vague clearing in deep green, no path, no address, no marker, as if it never existed. But Colorado land records showed it as a temporary hunting lodge registered to Raymond Moss, born 1958. No spouse, no children, no steady job. His tax records were nearly blank. Criminal record, clean. Oddly, after the 2005 fire, no one noted Moss contacting local authorities, though the fire report stated the blaze started inside, with no signs of spreading from the forest. An unexplained fire per the report's cold notation. Investigator Leland Ortiz dug up every old record, even requesting unsealed handwritten notes from the time. In a loose page tucked into a file, he found a firefighter's handwritten note from the 2005 scene. Strong chlorine smell. Not like burning wood, more like someone wanted to erase all traces. The words chilled him. The cabin wasn't just a hideout. It might have been where Samantha was held, or worse, where she spent her final days. Police and forensics returned to the site, now with a clear goal: excavate the remaining foundation, collect every ash fragment, rusted nail, and charred mark. They found traces of a small basement, buried under dirt and ash, but with intact cement block walls forming a rectangular outline. Digging deeper, they uncovered charred wooden beams, neatly arranged, and in the center, a half-burned crossbeam with slash marks, not from fire, but a sharp tool. At the basement's far corner, in a rock wall, the team found a rusted hinge, like that of an iron door once welded shut. No blood. But the remnants told a clearer story than any confession. Someone had built an iron door underground, then buried it in ash and time. Meanwhile, an elderly local, Clyde Burrow, a former rural mail carrier, offered a new clue. He recalled delivering mail and groceries to the cabin in the early 2000s. "I never saw the recipient," he said. "Just a wooden box left outside, with an envelope of small bills. But once, I saw a flashlight in the woods, and it felt like someone was watching." When Clyde described the trail to the cabin, Ortiz matched it exactly to the path where Samantha's jacket was found. The jacket wasn't blown there by wind. It was placed in the most visible spot for someone leaving the cabin. Not chance, a choice. The question was, why, after 13 years, did someone leave the jacket? Did they want to speak, or test, if anyone still cared? Amid the investigation, a small but haunting detail stopped Ortiz. In the ash and rubble by a wall corner, among heat-warped items, was a single handcuff. Inside its keyhole was a half-burned red thread. Embroidery thread, like what Samantha used to stitch her name on her jacket. When shown to Martha, she trembled, holding it. This was hers. "I bought that red thread for Christmas 2002. Samantha used it for handkerchiefs, pillows, even stitched her name on her backpack." The handcuff, the red thread, the iron door. Every detail pointed to something no one wanted to believe, that Samantha had been held there. For how long, unknown. By whom, unknown. But she'd lived. She'd tried to escape, and she'd left traces. Police hunted for Raymond Moss, but he'd vanished from the world. Expired driver's license, inactive Social Security, no bank transactions, no known relatives, a ghost in plain sight. But Ortiz believed Moss wasn't alone. Evidence suggested someone else brought food, kept silent, and later, burned everything. The 2005 fire wasn't an accident, it was erasure. And now, after over a decade, that ash was stirring. Samantha was never found, but the cabin that once held her was now where the truth began to knock. And whoever thought they could bury everything in that basement may have underestimated a mother's resolve and the power of memory. The file on Raymond Moss remained a vast void, so empty that even federal databases found no trace of the man after 2005. No medical records, no Social Security activity, no bills, no relatives. It was as if he'd never existed. But then an anonymous call to the Clearfield County office opened an entirely new door. The caller, a woman with a hoarse, hesitant, fearful voice, gave no name, only saying, "I lived near Harlow Forest in the early 2000s. I think I saw that man." Connected to investigator Leland Ortiz, she shared a strange story. Around 2004, her dog often ran off into the woods. One evening, following its tracks, she saw a small wooden cabin with dim light seeping through a door crack. "I didn't dare get closer. But I saw him standing in the yard, a tall, thin man in a long wool coat, cap pulled low over his face. What she could never forget was his left hand. It had a large scar, long puckered, like a burn. The fingers were curled, like they'd been damaged. She told no one, thinking he was just a drifter. But after hearing about Samantha's jacket found nearby, she found the courage to speak. Ortiz immediately had a sketch of the hand drawn from her description, and began searching medical records within a 100-mile radius of Cedar Hill, specifically for men with severe left-hand burns between 1995 and 2005. After 3 days, he found a match, Marcus Bell, admitted to a Cortez clinic in 2002 for third-degree burns to his hand from a hunting shack furnace accident. Oddly, Marcus never returned for follow-up care. The address listed was an abandoned cabin west of Cortez, but when police arrived, only a rotted foundation remained. No traces, no items, not a scrap of paper. When Ortiz sent the sketch to other hospitals, a retired nurse in Pagosa Springs confirmed seeing the man, not once, but multiple times. He came for pain meds, never talked much, always wore a glove on his left hand. But I remember his eyes, empty, cold as still water. Police began to suspect Raymond Moss was an alias, possibly used by Marcus Bell. If true, Marcus could be the one who lived in the cabin, held Samantha, and later burned all evidence. But why? What tied Samantha to him? And why was she chosen? These questions led Ortiz back to Samantha's personal notes, the fragmented diary entries he'd photographed at Martha's house. One stood out, the man on the roadside, third time this week. He never looks directly, but I know he knows I'm watching. Another, his hand is injured. Left hand. Smells like antiseptic. I saw him pass the school's back gate at 6:45. No one believes me. Those words now formed a clearer shape than ever. Samantha had been watching him. She'd noticed him appearing repeatedly near the school. She wasn't naive. She knew she was being watched, and that may have made her a target. The investigation extended to a smaller community, Ridger Rock, nearly 80 miles from Cedar Hill. A local, Harold Brinker, owner of an old auto shop, confirmed a mysterious man applied for a job in spring 2003. He didn't give a name, just said to call him Red. His hand was bandaged. He slept in his truck for weeks, didn't talk to anyone, but he was good, fixed cars fast, knew old machinery. Then one day, he vanished, no goodbye. When Ortiz asked about the truck, Harold gave a dry laugh. A beat-up Chevy, repainted brown. I remember because he painted it by hand, left streaks all over the wheel. A brown Chevy. The truck Samantha mentioned in her diary, the final piece was falling into place. The scarred hand, the wooden cabin, the brown truck, the empty eyes. Samantha was right, she was being followed. And that man may have approached her that night, not by chance, but with intent. But Ortiz knew, to hold a teenage girl for any time, one person wasn't enough. It required help. Someone to supply medicine, food, a place to hide. One person couldn't build an underground bunker, install an iron door, burn a house, and vanish without a trace. So who helped him, and why stay silent for 13 years? When the sketch of the scarred hand man aired on local TV, Martha stared at the screen and broke into tears. I saw him, I swear, at the 2002 Town Festival. He stood behind the ice cream truck, took nothing, just watched. For 13 years, he'd been somewhere out there, maybe with a new name, a new place. But those eyes, that hand, they weren't easily erased from the memories of those who'd seen them. And now, everything was coming back. Every face, every trace, every buried sin. They were waking up. One April morning, in 2017, at a flea market near the New Mexico border, a middle-aged man named Gary Weller, a collector of old cameras, found an odd item, a scratched-up 2003 Canon digital camera, still with its memory card inside. He bought it for $5 from an unidentified vendor. Curious, he plugged the card into his computer at home, unknowingly opening a door to a nightmare buried for over a decade. Most photos were blurry nature shots, branches, skies, a hand pressing the shutter in a mirror, but the final folder, labeled private, froze him. A series of images taken in a cramped, dimly lit space with rotting wooden walls. At the center was a young girl, brown hair, gaunt, eyes vacant, hands tied in front with silver fabric. Her face was partly obscured, but clear enough to grip Gary's heart. After hesitating, he emailed the contents to Colorado's police hotline. 3 days later, the images reached investigator Leland Ortiz, who saw what the team had long awaited. The girl was Samantha Whitlow, thinner, face bruised, eyes lifeless, but biological markers, earlobe shape, a neck birthmark, a small mole under her left eye, matched perfectly. In some photos, Samantha sat against a wall on a thin blanket beside an old metal water bucket. The most chilling image was taken through a wooden door's gap, the photographer outside, aiming the lens as if secretly watching. Samantha was sleeping, hands still tied, dim light filtering through a ceiling crack. The wall's cracks and wood grain matched the burned basement walls the forensics team had excavated. No doubt, these photos were taken in the cabin where she was held. Another detail caught Ortiz's eye in 3 photos. The photographer accidentally revealed part of their left hand holding the camera. It wore an old cloth glove, but in one shot, the glove was torn at the pinky, exposing scarred, burned-like skin. The scarred hand. Another photo showed an old leather bag on the floor, its side revealing a small skull sticker, identical to one Samantha had on her high school backpack. It stabbed Martha's heart when she saw it. "That's her bag. I'd know it anywhere. I sewed the left strap when it frayed. That stitching, it's mine." But the pain didn't end there. A 12-second video clip recovered from the card panned quickly through another small room with 3 padlocks on a metal door. The background filled with faint, muffled screams, unclear whose, stifled by distance, then silence. The team traced the camera's serial number, finding it was bought with cash at a Durango electronics store in April 2003. The buyer left no name, but the store's grainy archived security footage showed a tall, thin man in a baseball cap, left hand bandaged. Ortiz needed no further confirmation. It was him. The question was, why were these photos left in an old camera, drifting to a flea market? Ortiz believed that after the cabin fire, the abductor fled in haste, losing or abandoning the camera. He may have thought all evidence was destroyed, or someone else found and kept it, unaware of its value. If so, other devices, hard drives, memory cards, or even notes, might still be out there, waiting to be found. Police launched a large-scale call for information, urging anyone who'd bought or found suspicious items to come forward. Meanwhile, data recovery technicians worked to retrieve deleted files from the card. In one nearly corrupted image, only a handwritten text fragment was restored, slanted and blurry but legible. Day 198. I dreamed of Mom. It was proof not only that Samantha survived past her disappearance, but also her voice, a person still existing, still hoping, still recording her fragile existence. Martha couldn't look away from the photos. Each time, she felt her daughter's eyes through the screen, not just pleading, but sending a message. I'm still here. I didn't give up. And now, thanks to those hidden photos, the fire of truth was reigniting, burning through the darkness that had swallowed a 17-year-old's life. By late April, as snow melted on the slopes around Harlow Forest, the investigation team returned to the site of the cabin's foundation, where the Canon camera's photos confirmed Samantha was held. Among moss-covered rocks and damp mud, in a hidden corner behind the charred basement, an unusual wooden plank caught Ortiz's attention. Buried under loose soil, it seemed to conceal something. As forensics began digging, the ground grew oddly compact. A team member plunged his hand into the dirt and froze. He pulled up a dark fabric strip, caked with mud and ash. Then, a frayed rope, knotted like a noose. Digging nearly a meter deeper, they found a wooden box frame, about 1.5 meters long, 0.5 meters wide, hastily nailed with rusted spikes. No body inside. But that wasn't what silenced Ortiz for minutes. At the pit's center lay a silver necklace with a small heart pendant, a tiny cess etched inside, nearly faded by time. Martha, called to the scene, recognized it instantly. She collapsed on the cold ground. This was her 16th birthday necklace, she sobbed. I hid a tiny photo of us inside. Samantha never took it off. Never. Ortiz held the necklace with gloved hands, light as if a breeze could move it. It wasn't there by chance. Someone placed it there, like a farewell or a final mark of existence. Among the wooden planks, the team found faint scratch marks, unclear if from a person or animal, but one long, deep, continuous gouge on the box's edge suggested someone had tried to push or open it from within. A suffocating feeling enveloped the site. Ortiz stepped out of the pit, staring at the windless forest. The pit held no body. But to him, it was a grave. An empty grave, yet it held the soul of a youth buried alive. As forensics processed the scene, Ortiz ordered a 500-meter radius sweep, using metal detectors and geological cameras to find other underground cavities. Within hours, the scanner detected an anomaly, a large metal object, 1.2 meters below ground, near a large pine. Digging revealed an old iron chest, rusted and locked, tangled with roots and dirt. It took nearly an hour to open, and when the lid lifted, everyone fell silent. Inside were personal items: a leather notebook, a fountain pen, a cloth bundle of torn papers, most rotted. But some were legible. The trembling handwriting, ink blurred by dampness, carried a message clearer than ever. Day 142. I heard noises last night. Not animals. Someone else is out there. Day 165. He doesn't speak, but he watches. I know what he wants. Day 189. It rained today. I imagined sitting in the car with Mom, listening to music. That's how I keep from going crazy. The final entry, undated, had one short line. If anyone finds this, please tell Mom I tried. Ortiz clenched his jaw reading it. This was Samantha's diary. Her final words. No body or blood was needed. Just those words made the entire investigation bow its head. But the notebook held more on the back cover. A rough sketch showed 3 small connected rooms, a short tunnel, and a door with a crossed-out key symbol. Below, she wrote, "The locked door won't open, but I hear children's voices on the other side." Ortiz shuddered. Children? Could Samantha not have been the only one held there? The question opened a new nightmare. If true, who were those children, and why were they never found? He immediately requested an expanded investigation into missing children cases around the area from 1998 to 2005, when Raymond Moss was believed active. A list of over 40 names emerged, mostly teens, many native or immigrant, names that never made headlines. Somehow, Samantha had heard their voices, and she tried to write them down. Now, from that buried pit in the snow, the truth was rising like a drowned body held down too long. She wasn't just a victim, she was the last witness, and her final words, "I tried," became an unbreakable promise to those left behind. On the night of May 5, 2017, at 2:14 a.m., the old landline in Martha's house rang. The sound jolted her awake, as if instinct warned her before she heard it. She sat up, heart pounding, the room still dark, only faint hallway light seeping through the door crack. No one called at this hour, not anymore. Her trembling hand nearly fumbled the receiver. "Hello?" Her voice hoarse, choked. For a second, only breathing light, as if from far away. Then, a small, whispering, halting voice. "Mom, I'm cold." Martha froze. It was a girl's voice, hoarse, muffled as if through cloth, weak as if teetering on an edge. But the tone, the cadence, she couldn't mistake it. It was Samantha. "Sam, is that you? Where are you? Sam!" She screamed into the phone, her heart crushed. No reply. Just a stifled sob, then the line went dead. No signal, no callback number, nothing. She sat motionless for 5 minutes, the phone still pressed to her ear, as if holding on would keep the call alive. When tears finally streamed down her cheeks, she staggered up, calling Ortiz's office. Within an hour, he was at her house. He immediately ordered technicians to trace the call, knowing anonymous calls rarely left tracks. But a strange stroke of luck, the switchboard logged a 12-second call from a temporary mobile tower 17 miles southwest of Cedar Hill. A remote, mountainous area with almost no homes. Ortiz had the area cordoned off and launched a search. They found an old cell phone discarded nearby, battery nearly dead, no SIM. Its memory held one recently dialed number, Martha's, and in its recordings, a 19-second file captured the exact call she'd heard. What stunned Ortiz wasn't the words, it was the FBI's voice analysis the next day. The voice sample matches Samantha Whitlow's, based on her school speech recordings, with 85.6% probability, a chance too high to ignore. If it wasn't Samantha, it was someone mimicking her voice. But why? And why now? Ortiz began to believe what he'd refused to. Samantha might still be alive, not far away right here. Maybe held again, or perhaps she made the call, signaling for help. He ordered a sweep of the southwest Cedar Hill forest, focusing on abandoned houses, hunting shacks, unregistered cabins. A small team scoured the area, though chances were slim. Meanwhile, Martha was assessed by psychologists, but they agreed. No hallucinations, no psychosis, no medication effects. The phrase "Mom, I'm cold" haunted her every minute. Deep down she knew, if it was a fake voice, it had to know exactly how Samantha called her, a nuance no one could perfectly mimic. More than that, she felt it. The voice wasn't just pleading for rescue, it was waiting to be recognized. 3 days later, a rescue team found signs of a makeshift camp in a shallow rock cave near the phone's location. Inside were traces of a fire, an old blanket scrap, a hand-opened, torn-edged food can. But no one was there. No hair, no skin, no intact prints. As if someone had paused briefly, then vanished like a ghost. Ortiz silently noted it all in his notebook, his writing tight. That night, he replayed the call's recording, ear to the speaker, volume maxed, office lights off. As "I'm cold" sounded, he caught another noise, faint, buried under the breathing. "Don't let him," then static, then silence. Ortiz sat up, ran the audio through spectrum analysis, and confirmed a second voice existed. Deeper, colder, possibly a man's or his. He was close, he may never have left. He might still be watching, still silent, as he had 13 years before. And now, Ortiz knew, he wasn't just hunting a criminal. He was racing time to save whatever remained of Samantha, if she was still alive. If that voice was truly hers. If she could call for her mother one more time. The summer of 2017 in Cedar Hill dragged on slowly, damp and heavy, as if the earth and sky were waiting for a final answer. The search for Samantha entered its 4th month since the jacket's discovery, but it was no longer just an investigation. It had become a symbol, an unhealed wound. A persistent whisper among the trees that the truth was still breathing, somewhere in the forest. Martha never left town after that midnight call. She spent her days roaming the areas near where the phone was found, taping her daughter's picture to utility poles, phone booths, gas stations, and fences. Wherever she went, she left a handwritten note. "Samantha, if you see this, Mom is still waiting." Investigator Leland Ortiz, in a final effort, expanded the search to similar missing persons cases across Colorado over the past 2 decades. By connecting the cases, he uncovered a pattern no one had noticed. All disappearances occurred near forests or mountains, in areas without cell service or traffic cameras. And stranger still, many victims had reported being followed before vanishing. Just like Samantha. Among the cases was a standout, Catherine Bluebird, a 15-year-old Navajo girl, missing since 2001 while heading to summer camp with friends. She'd written to her mother about a gray-haired man, always standing near the bus stop after school. No one followed up thoroughly, because her family was poor and lived far from town. But now the pieces were aligning. Ortiz visited Catherine's mother, Myra Bluebird, in a small wooden home in Four Corners. When he told her about Samantha, the photos, and the diary note saying, "I tried," Myra nodded silently, then opened a drawer and pulled out a rusted silver bracelet with a small 6-pointed star etched on it. "Catherine wore it every day," she said. "It was mailed to me in my mailbox. No return address. In the winter of 2005, I don't know where it came from. Only that she existed somewhere." The words, "existed somewhere," cut into Ortiz like a knife. It was exactly what he felt about Samantha, an existence once confined, extinguished, crying out in silence. Back in Cedar Hill, he called a final press conference. Standing before dozens of reporters, cameras, and locals, he declared, "We haven't found a body. But we have clear evidence that Samantha Whitlow lived after that night. She was held, watched, and may have been a victim in a systematic series of incidents spanning over a decade." Silence blanketed the room. No one breathed heavily. Ortiz continued, "We believe the perpetrator didn't act alone, and he, or they, may still be out there." His final words hit the town's collective memory like a blow. Eyes began to meet with suspicion. Who had lived among them all these years, hiding everything? A bus driver? A teacher? A postal worker? A man with a scarred hand? Where was he when Samantha vanished? And more importantly, why was he still silent? A week after the conference, a young woman was found wandering in a small Wyoming town. She carried no ID, couldn't recall her name, and didn't speak. She only repeated 3 words. "Don't close doors." Police immediately suspected a connection and sent her for DNA testing. For 3 days, as results were pending, the media held its breath. Martha barely left the church, clutching her daughter's photo, lips whispering prayers. But the results were negative. The girl wasn't Samantha. No relation. Martha didn't cry. She only nodded, whispering, "Then Sam's still out there." She never said dead. Never. In the years that followed, Cedar Hill residents often saw a gray-haired woman standing silently by the forest's edge at dusk. In her hand was always a photo. Samantha smiling brightly, holding a book, hair falling to her shoulders. She spoke to no one, just stood, as if waiting for someone to step out of the woods, gently, silently, as if never lost. Samantha Whitlow was never found. No grave, no closure, but what she left behind, the necklace, the jacket, the map sketch, the ink-soaked diary pages, was undeniable proof that she lived, loved, fought, waited to be saved, and never gave up. In a final interview, investigator Ortiz was asked if he believed Samantha was still alive. He looked into the camera, eyes red and sunken from sleeplessness. "I'm not sure, but I know one thing," he said. "She existed here, and that's enough for us to never forget." The story didn't end with a revealed truth, but with an indelible scar, an unfillable void. But sometimes, remembering someone who existed is the last act of justice left. Samantha Whitlow's story is not just a personal tragedy, but a mirror reflecting alarming gaps in American society today, especially in protecting teenagers and heeding danger signals from communities. Samantha tried to speak out before vanishing. She wrote in her diary about the man following her, texted friends about her unease, even detailed the brown truck and burned hand, but no one truly listened. This reveals a chilling reality. Many American teens feel alone in voicing their fears, and when they do, adults often dismiss them as imagination. In the story, Samantha was held in a secret cabin for months, maybe years, just miles from town. This reflects the reality that human trafficking, abductions, and hidden confinement can happen in modern America, where advanced tracking technology exists, but fails if society isn't vigilant. The lesson is clear. We must learn to listen, not just with ears, but with genuine care. Parents, teachers, and friends need to trust teens' instincts when they sense danger. Communities must build faster response systems for missing persons cases, because a single day's delay can close all doors forever. Samantha existed, and girls like her are still waiting to be heard, all across this country. If you believe the truth deserves to be heard, and those who vanished deserve to be remembered, please hit subscribe to join us on this journey. Thank you for staying until the end of Samantha's story. See you in the next video, where we continue tracing unanswered memories.